Welcome, friendos. We are joined not by my Alliance-mate Matthew Noodles, but by my Alliance-mate Astrodar, who made a Scarlet Witch deck that slaps. I believe it's known as Just Ice, if that's correct.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
Love it. Do you wanna give us a walkthrough of what this deck's all about?
Yeah, basic idea is to try and rush to get to avoid all of the terrible situations that can show up when legions of Hydra shows up. But at the same time, because Scarlet Witch relies on these random flips, you have to be able to recover if you don't get the draws that you need. So it needs to be able to last an extra 3 or 4 rounds if something goes wrong. Um, so yeah, so basically we have her basic kit and the basic mystic. Oh, well, actually, not all the basic mystic stuff. We have spiritual meditation in there because we want to be able to cycle things. But because we're going for speed, we left out Sorcerer Supreme.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, just some allies that can really what we're looking for is Fury. But the rest of them can really capitalize on those power of all of us that we brought. Um, Then we brought Assess to kind of even out some turns and make sure we're not wasting any cards. And then our really efficient damage and uh, thwarting options from Justice. So clear the area, turn the tide. Followed in this case purely because we start with that 4 health minion right off the bat.
Right. It just perfectly lines up.
Hmm. Exactly. So
Very
yeah.
cool. Yeah, so I mean, we've been kind of chatting through different decks and things like that in the Alliance channel, and got to see this deck slowly get put together, and I'm looking forward to actually doing it in practice. This seems like this is going to be great fun. Hopefully, it kind of performs at a level that you are used to it performing, not obscenely fast or obscenely slow or anything like that, just so people get a real sense of kind of what playing the deck's all about.
Same. Most of my games have hit between 3 to 5 turns, but I have had one where I pulled legions and then legions again and then shadows, which I won, but it was messy. Uh, and so it can get delayed pretty hardcore with some bad draws.
And so I'm just going to flip this because we already actually have the bioservant out. There's no when revealed effects once we flip this. So I believe the board is all set up. I do have a bad habit of forgetting things when I haven't. I usually almost have to play a couple practice games before I play my real game, so I can get some of the things I forget out of my system. Like, for example, we're going to grab one of these captive heroes and throw it in. We get to know what it is. It's Electra.
Oh,
That's good.
she is the best one.
She pushes the damage, so that's amazing. Um, Anything else we're forgetting in our setup? I don't think so. We all good?
Yeah, no, looks good to me.
Okay, so Scarlet Witch draws 6, and then the way we're usually doing these is I'll kind of talk through what seems like the best play to me, and maybe some other play that's worth considering, and then you can tell me really what a person who's been playing with this deck would actually do. Sometimes we line up, sometimes we don't. But I think it's nice to see. I think people get to really see a bunch of different things. I see Chaos Magic right off the bat, which is absolutely amazing.
Oh yeah, that's
Um,
one we want right off the bat.
right, and so I'm just looking at my cards and knowing things we don't need. I know we absolutely don't need Magic Shield based on what we're up to. Assess the situation is great to have at the end of your turn if you can't actually play your entire hand out. But of course, we mulligan that away because that doesn't matter. And so then the last two cards are ones that I'm going to wonder about. Knowing that really what we're trying to do is dig for Nick Fury, I would definitely be inclined to get rid of Turn the Tide. Clear the area, I might question. I would probably get rid of it because I know what we really want to do is dig for Nick Fury. But so then maybe I'll turn it over to you and tell me, am I ditching Clear the Area or not?
I would ditch it. If I was keeping one, I would keep Turn the Tide, but there are
Yeah.
3 copies in there, so
Yeah, we're almost guaranteed to see another one. Excuse me. It is a shame to not to get rid of any of them because that is such an efficient damage source. But again, every card we keep is one card fewer that we can dig to get Nick Fury. So Chaos Magic, obviously, because that just going to make things magic. So we dig and we get 5 cards on our mulligan. And then just remembering what I read in the guide that you shared, Molecular Decay is probably one that we typically won't be able to play 2 of. Of course, we have Chaos Magic, so we might actually be able to. But maybe the second one, the damage isn't quite the right efficiency anyway, so it's hard to say. So I kind of get that. Order and Chaos is also something that's nice to draw into, but not necessarily something that's great to hold on to. But we do that one only gets rid of a treachery, so it's really what is her cancel any card?
That one's Warp Reality.
Right. So Warp Reality is one that I'm guessing we might actually consider keeping if at the end of our turn if we had it, but probably not ever Order and Chaos.
Yeah, I might consider floating Order and Chaos until we see our full 5-card draw, but it's not terribly important.
So at this point, we do have the option of using Wanda's power to ditch 2 to draw 2, and Magic Shield's obviously useless. So it's kind of, is there something else in here we want to do that with? Clear the area is obviously part of trying to free from the Hydra prison, but if we're going to get Nick Fury, we can use his 2 thwart instead to do that. So clear the area is not necessary for that. So I would propose to get rid of Magic Shield and clear the area based on our discussion of maybe keeping Order and Chaos if it came to that.
Yeah, I think that would be perfectly fine. That's like what I would do.
Okay, love it. So we'll get rid of those 2, which just again for the reminder, we've got the super powered siblings. If we actually had Quicksilver out, we'd be able to get an extra card even, but you have to ditch 2 to draw 2. So we've ditched 2 and we draw 2. We've got 2 Hex Bolts. These are great, but of course not actually Nick Fury. Is this the point at which you're starting to sweat a little in the game, or
Oh no, we still have
when do you
tons to
start to
go.
worry? So we do have a spiritual meditation, which would be nice to use after we use the tactical scanner, because that will have more options for things that we're happy to ditch, right? So now we trigger the tactical scanner. Just stop me if I'm about to do anything really dumb, which is 5 cards. And then we got Ironheart, so we'd actually have somebody to play if we wanted to play an ally, but she doesn't have quite enough thwart to actually deal with the scheme anyway, so that's not quite what we need. We've got the Followed, which is great. I guess for spiritual meditationing, so we can continue to dig. And so this is one of those things where I have to, every time I do this, I have to catch myself and say, don't forget to discard a card. And there's Fury. Okay, so we dug deep enough that we were actually able to do this. And then we're definitely not going to use Agatha. So let's not act like we're going to think about things until after we've done that.
Yeah.
We only, the next thing we do, again, I mean, it is amazing how many cards we're seeing. Because we got 2 double resources that can play for Fury, that's the next thing we do. Is there any world in which I would do something else first?
I would consider using Chaos Magic on that, just because we have enough Hex Bolts to use our double resource, and we have Ironheart in there to capitalize on our power in all of us.
Okay, so I'm very glad you stopped me. Okay, so we can Chaos Magic out Fury first to get more cards and kind of see what happens from there. See if there's some other, as you say, there's one viable target for power in all of us, and we might even find something better, like Spider-Man is pretty darn efficient, knowing we're going to go 2 turns. That works out pretty well. Okay, so we will Chaos Magic out Nick Fury, and then Chaos Magic is we're going to discard cards from the top of the encounter deck equal to the printed cost here. So we'll give him his 3 health. We're going to draw 3 cards after, but we ditch 4 cards here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and we'll have a look at these as we're getting rid of them. So we got a Bioservant, we got an Attachment, we got one of those, which is always nice to see, and then an Assault, which Zola doesn't hit especially hard, but of course, we're not sad to see it go.
Yeah.
What we would like to have seen is all the What's the scheme that we are really trying to
Oh,
avoid having
Legions
to
of
see?
Hydra.
It would be really nice if those Legions of
Yeah.
Hydra just went away as we did this. And
Oh, for
I don't
sure.
know. I don't know how you feel, but I really like one of the things I like about playing Scarlet Witch and some of the other things that fiddle with the encounter deck is you get a lot more information, even though it's scary because sometimes you're going through the encounter deck faster than you want. I now know there's only one assault in there. That's helpful.
Oh yeah. No, it's great, especially once you start throwing out like hex bolts and stuff, and you're going to see more of the encounter deck in the discard than you'll actually be revealing on your own turn. So
Right.
you get
Right.
way more benefit from it.
Right. So we ended up getting another double resource and Hexbolt. And so now we're actually thinking about what sort of things we want to do. Zone of Silence is pretty efficient. It's similar efficiency to clear the area once you're using your activation for it anyway, and it only does 4 threats, so it's not like we can clear that main scheme anyway. But we're going to want to get this isn't the sequence, but I just want to kind of identify some of the things that in my understanding, we want to do is we want to get followed onto the Hydra prison.
Mhm.
We're going to want to get Quicksilver out of there so that we can use the followed on here, but we of course need to get rid of that tough first.
Mhm.
Ironheart, given what's in our hand, seems actually like a decent. We can turn Ironheart into. We can turn 2 cards into 1 card and a ping off that tough, so that might be one way to do it. And then Scarlet Witch's activation takes care of the 3, and then we only have to do Zone of Silence for 2. There's a small chance we might draw into a clear the area, which might be a different option. Would you be inclined to try to get rid of the tough with Ironheart, or would you go for the Hexbolt?
I would go for Ironheart first, purely to clear off that tough.
Love it. Okay, so we do Ironheart with power in all of us. So she gets her 2 health, and we get 1 card out of that she showed up with. Okay, Spidey shows up. Well, let's just do this because we're really excited that we know it's going to happen. So we get rid of that tough. Then let's see. I guess we can Hexbolt. I guess we start Hexbolting so that if we're drawing our if we're pulling the threat off the Hexbolt, it actually has somewhere to go. We kind of do that as the next thing before. I mean, we put follow it on first, but we kind of do that as the next major phase of what we're up to. Does that seem like what you would do?
Exactly, because like odds are you won't get all 3 wart removals, but if you do, they
Yeah.
can all actually be useful.
Okay. And then Hexbolt has this kind of amazing thing that sometimes you just draw all draws, and then you're like, okay, well, whatever. I just exchanged some stuff in my hand. Big whoop. With all this in mind and knowing how many Hexbolts we have, the fact that we should ultimately be able to draw into, or sorry, we should be ultimately able to get some threat off that scheme. I'm almost inclined to play Zone of Silence to pay for this followed, but I don't know if that's keep
That
the
is
Hexbolt chain.
Yeah, that's exactly what I would do because we brought along the thwart upgrade. As long as one threat, or like, sorry,
Yeah,
one, as long as we take off 2 threat from that scheme, we can always
yeah,
basic and clear
right.
that. So
Perfect. Okay. And yeah, that's one of the challenges with Hexbolt is, it's not always going where you want. So having somewhere useful for some of the stuff to go is great. And then I guess the other thing is, I certainly wouldn't be inclined to try to reroll on the first Hexbolt, but we'll, kind of check in on the rerolls that you might want to do with Hexbolt because Scarlet Witch has 1 reroll for this entire phase. So then I've got that out. Now I want to Hexbolt. Again, stop me if I'm doing something dumb.
no,
And
no,
then
that's
so
good.
I'll pull the 3 cards and flip those on over, and let's see what we got. You probably already have these in your brain, but I got a 0, I got a 0, and I got a 0. So I got 6 damage.
Yeah,
The um do we push 4 of those here onto Ultimate Bioservant, or do we just kind of push all 6 of them onto Zola? Or does it matter?
I'm just kind of thinking because this is actually like it's a pretty decent roll with what we have in our hand because no matter what, you've got 4 that can clean up, and we've got the threat handled due to Fury and basic activation. So
Mhm,
whenever
mhm,
we want, we can clean that uh, side scheme, which means that if we keep this all as damage, Zola 1's already at half health, and we
mhm.
have very strong odds of our molecular decay clearing him off. Um, so I think if we're planning to play one more hex bolt at least, which I would think we'd want to,
Mhm.
then I'd say we could go ahead and leave it all as damage, and doesn't matter which route you go because it's gonna perfectly use up all of our damage to go to the minion first or to Zola.
Right, and so I guess if we are going to try to molecular decay this turn, we would like to leave the opportunity open to actually do max damage and have it all work.
Hmm.
So from that perspective, putting all it on Zola means we could roll too high on molecular decay and waste some damage. So we at least want to put 2. So we might as well put 4 on the bioservant and then the other 2 on Zola.
Yep, works for me.
Okay. So I mean, I think there's an argument that if you could actually do it in one turn, which there's not quite enough resources to do it, though, you might consider not doing that 4 damage to the bioservant, right?
Mhm.
I think that's the condition. That's the thing you're looking at and being like, well, maybe it could all work, but I don't think it's going to be that magical. Okay, so now we are going to throw these in the discard, and we know we want to molecular decay. We're just discussing doing that next. But other thing we're going to follow that on with is a hex bolt as opposed to a Spider-Man probably. Uh, let's do our quick counting here. So we could do a Spider-Man straight up, or we could just keep on hex bolting and see. Sometimes the hex bolts draw you into more cards that you can even pay for that last hex bolt. Is that
Mhm.
more or less what you plan to do?
Yeah, that's kind of where I would sit it. There's not I don't think that we'll get enough out of Spider-Man to play him unless we get all card draws from something to where it'd be worth actually playing him. So I'd save out a Hex Bolt because you can always just it's an okay card to carry over if you really want to.
Right. Well, okay. So let me give the counter argument for. Oh, we're going to save Quicksilver, so we only actually have to roll 1 draw on the second hex bolt
Hmm,
to be able to afford the third hex bolt.
true.
Okay. That's helpful. Okay, let's pretend that wasn't happening. I was going to argue Spider-Man is a guaranteed 6 damage where Hexbolt is not, but of course Hexbolt could roll us a tougher, like some sort of status effect that is actually great from a scoring perspective, super beneficial, right? Trading not having Zola attack for 2 damage on Zola seems pretty good.
Yeah, yeah.
So hex bolts are still, I mean, because hex bolts are nominally can be up to 6 damage, but it's that can get put somewhere else as other things. So Spider-Man can definitely do that, but hex bolt might do some other stuff that's useful. I guess that's the point. Okay, so we've got a molecular decay. We are going to ditch the top 2 encounter cards and hope for high rolls here. And we did not bad at
Perfect.
all. So we actually did a bit of overkill. No, we did it on the nose. Oh my
Yep,
god.
exactly.
Okay, that is remarkable. Let's hope this isn't a turn 2-1 because then everyone's just going to think this deck does does this all the time. When we want it to have a decent but not spectacular run. Of course, it'll be very exciting if it's 2 turns because you said you haven't had it 2 turns yet, right?
Nope, it's been close, but there's always just a couple damage left over.
Okay. So we advance Zola. He now has 14 health. He has a when revealed effect. We also didn't take the retaliate damage because we defeated him in that one shot.
Well, we'll still take the retaliate because this
Oh,
one
because he
has
comes up
it.
with retaliate. Right, I forgot about that. Thank you.
But we
And
should
then,
have 12 health because our war upgrade comes with.
oh, that
Uh,
worked really well. We just took a damage and then healed 2. Love it. Um, Okay, so now we got to search the encounter deck for test subjects because this specific mod does not actually do that. And we go get a test subjects. No, is it end discard? End discard. Okay, so actually, would you normally go for the one from the encounter deck or the discard when you have the choice?
I take from the deck usually, just because if this comes out as an encounter, it's not terrible, but
Yep,
you're looking at a minimum of 2 to 3 actions to clean it back up.
yep. I I I agree. I think I would think something similar. So now we've argued our way to doing a hex bolt that will perhaps turn into another hex bolt.
hmm
Okay, so now we go for another 3 of these. And we got a 1, so we got that threat we were looking for, or that thwarting, and we got a 2, which is card draw, which is what we were looking for, and then we got another threat removal. At this point, I might be inclined to reroll the threat removal because we don't need both of them, and that having that side scheme. Oh, but we could hit this other one with it, the test subjects,
Yeah, you could hit the test subjects with one, the prison camp with the other,
and we got
and
the card draw.
and that leaves Fury free to deal an extra 2 damage to Zola.
That is pretty amazing. Things have actually been going quite well. Hey, okay, so we have one threat action, one draw card action, and one threat removal action. So we're going to take the 2 off there, which is going to defeat this, and then we're going to go and discard a minion. And let me just zoom in here on my view. Oh, that's not good news.
There we go. That's what we've been waiting for. Something to go wrong.
Okay, and then well, our next hex bolt will just roll the 6, and we'll be fine, right? And then the
Exactly.
other 2 were on there, and then we got to draw a card for our final thing.
Hmm.
Then at this point, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just trying to think if you would want to thwart first, but no, I think you're making the right call to play the hex bolt first, so that you have an extra spot for a thwart to go if you end up with it.
Well, we don't have enough resources to. We need to
Oh
grab
wait,
that
sorry, we need.
one.
That's what it was.
That
Yes.
one more. Oh, but we're gonna get our. Oh, I forgot about all this. We're gonna get followed to hit this, and then Fury can
hmm
clean it up, which is kind of what you were talking about. But that I have now registered what you were talking about. So, um, great. So we're gonna thwart for 3 again because we have the thwart upgrade. So this one goes, and let's just double check that we do this in anything that resembles a right order. So the when defeated is the first thing that happens. Remove the scheme from the game, return each ally to its owner's hand, so we get Quicksilver back in our hand. Then followed is a response. When the thing is defeated, we get 4 damage to an enemy. 1, 2, 3, 4. Come on. There we go. Fury's probably going to take some splash damage in the end, but that's fine. And then we get 1 final hex bolt.
hmm
This is amazing. This is good fun. I love that you like refined this deck to the point it's at. That's so great. We gotta. Oh, okay, so good thing we didn't re-roll before because we're gonna want to re-roll here. We got 2 damage and 2 threat removals. So we'll use our 1 re-roll on this and
hmm
hope we don't get another one. Okay, great. So we get 2. Is there any? There's nothing in this encounter deck that cares about the difference between Fury having 2 health and 1 health at the end, right? So we don't care
Right.
if he takes the retaliate damage.
hmm
Okay, so we do 2 of those damage then to Madame Hydra to defeat her, and then the thwarting goes nowhere, and then
hmm
finally we get a status card, and since he's already going to attack, Fury doesn't do anything and has nothing to stop, but Fury, if we drew a second attack, could do that, or you could put a confuse on, or you could put a stun on. I mean, a tough.
Yeah, I think what I tend to default toward is a confuse because that's going to be the one that's hardest to come back from.
Yeah.
Whereas if you just end up taking a hit, you'll lose 5 health.
Right. I'm very protective of the main scheme. Solo Champions League has just been absolutely brutal for that for me. So I almost always try to play Justice. I'm very protective of the main scheme, so Confused sits very well with me. But I can see why you might make some other decisions.
Oh, for
And then
sure. Yeah.
we do Fury. He's going to take a retaliate damage as part of this, and then does too. And then we've somehow made it through that first turn.
It's
We
a
untap.
beastie turn.
We untap. There's 16 cards left. Let's hope we don't have to actually see this whole deck. And we draw 5. Oh, yeah, we draw 5. And then so we got another Molecular Decay, and a Spiritual Meditation that might. I mean, I guess there's nothing else. Warp Reality we might want to use, and then hope we can pull a double resource with. What have we seen for double resources? I guess that might be when we get to the point where we're thinking about that.
I think we've seen everything except for one of our Power in All of Us.
Right. So strength we've seen, energy we've seen, and then what is the third one called? We have not
Strength.
seen the third one.
Oh, we have not.
No.
Oh, okay.
So we've got one power in all of us and one of the regular double resources. Okay. So
So
there's a
things-
chance we could warp reality and still get off that molecular decay if we really wanted to. Anyway, that was turn 1. Villain turn 1. He ticks up. He gets 1 threat. His vat of minions ticks up 1, and then he goes to attack us. We put Nick Fury in the way. We have 2 allies, which is amazing. Okay, great to see a Hydra soldier go by, because that's way better than coming out. And then we get our 1 encounter card. Again, we've got a Warp Reality if we really don't like it. Okay, so Zola's Mutate when revealed, discard cards from the top of the encounter deck until a tech is attached. Or until you find a tech and then attach it. Because of how much of a potentially unplayable hand that would create, Molecular Decay can clean it up, I guess. I don't know. I'm a little bit torn as to if I would try to warp reality this or not, and then hope that we can spiritual meditation, but that's not very unlikely. So
the way I'm looking at it is that we can spend 2 resources to deal 7 damage right now.
Agreed.
Or we can hope to spend 4 resources for 7 damage in a moment to use the molecular resource to hit it.
Love it.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So then the thing is, what does the turn look like absent being able to play Molecular Decay? We can get the crest out and know that that's probably going to do some more work, even though we've seen both our hex bolts go through. But I'm fully on board. I guess the issue is, depending on how we decide to play out our hand, would we still want to have assess? I think not, because I think we want molecular decay if our plan works out, and the crest if not, based on whatever comes out of spiritual meditation. So we pay the warp reality with the assess to cancel this. You want to play the crest? It's not gonna pay off. Yeah. I just want to feel good about getting something on the board, but I hear you. It's more likely we're going to find something that we actually care about out of spiritual meditation anyway. Right? Okay. Okay, so that cancels this, and that is the end of the villain turn. So we are on turn 2, and now we're looking at the spiritual meditation to see if something is actually going to happen this turn or not. All right. So not is the answer. Power in all of us at this point doesn't have a lot of targets. Skilled investigator is at least something we get on the table. We could play assess to draw up higher next turn and hold molecular decay for the final push. Love it. And so we get one extra card. It also means that we're going to see every card but one next turn if we want. So if we ditched our Molecular Decay, I'm not saying we're going to, but I'm saying if we ditched our Molecular Decay, we'd have a 1 in 9 chance of not seeing the other one. What else is in there that's going to do us some damage? We've seen the sources that I've seen beyond. Right, there's 4 Hex Bolts in the deck, I think. Is that right? Right. So we've got Turn the Tide, so we're potentially going to be able to. There's 2 Turn the Tides still in there, which basically Molecular Decay and 2 Turn the Tides is certainly going to do it. We should be able to deal with that last threat without too much trouble. So, is it reasonable in any way to ditch that Molecular Decay? I personally wouldn't want to take the risk, but I don't know how you've been playing the deck, even though it's a small risk. So then we flip. We play assess the situation so that we drop to 7. Oh, I counted poorly. We are going to see all of them. Never mind. We could actually, we will see all these cards because we can cycle some. We could ditch this Molecular Decay to guarantee a Molecular Decay and then maybe see something interesting as the first card off the deck after. Okay. We will. Okay. So we are now going to drop to 7, which does not draw us all the way through. Oh, did I speak poorly? No, it's just going to be in the pile that we see. Never mind. We're only going to see 1 Molecular Decay. We're not going to see past it. But we're still only going to have 1. Is that good? That's what we want, right? Because we're going to get 2 Turn the Tides and a Molecular Decay. Okay. So as long as what pops... Oh, and Electra. Forgot about Electra. There's some damage. As long as whatever pops up here doesn't derail us too much, we're all good. Okay, so turn 2 gets a threat, as a counter, goes to scheme against us and loses the confused token, and then we get our encounter card, and this is it, right? This is what, if we're successful or not. All right, so nice call in terms of moving over to... oh, what happened to the Turn the Tides? Did I not count Turn the Tides well? Because apparently I didn't. Oh, there's 2 in there, right. How did Quicksilver and... Oh, poop. Okay, so then we should actually have 1 more card then, because that should have been in the discard. Okay. So Quick Strike does not hit you in your hero and you're an alter ego, so that doesn't happen, and we are ready to roll. We probably will use Spiritual Meditation to continue to dig, get a Turn the Tide or whatever, but we can ditch 2 things. So Magic Shield and Followed, since neither of them have any use here at all. We never actually got rid of the Hydra Prison, but that's fine. So we ditch those with Superpowered Siblings. Draw 1, get an encounter card, draw the second. We did not... we were mistaken about we didn't count our Molecular Decays properly. I think we both thought that it was in there, but we didn't count correctly. So Electra can we trigger because we have a fist, right? So that's our 12. And we've got Spiritual Meditation to dig. Okay, so we miscounted. We both were talking out our butts a little too much, unfortunately. But we just did the cycle, so that's already happened. So we played that. So we flip because we do want that 1 thwart to be able to deal this to trigger the Turn the Tides. Okay. Then we spiritual meditation so that maybe something else comes, but nothing else comes. We ditch this. Oh, the fist. It's the fist. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so we need Electra with a fist for 6. We're going to do 2 Turn the Tides. We can play Machine Man and then power him up to 3, which is a completely clean win and above. Everything works, right? And then we can keep Ironheart for 1 extra health. Okay, so let's just execute it for anybody at home who doesn't entirely see it. We thwart with Scarlet Witch, then we double turn the tide. The first one takes care of the mutate. The second one takes that off Zola. Thank you. And then we won't mind if Electra takes retaliate damage. Her first thing that's her 3 damage to an enemy doesn't take retaliate damage because it is not an attack, but the second one will. So she's going to come out. We're going to pay a fist so that she does 3 damage, and then she's going to attack for another 3 damage and then take a retaliate, so she'll get a consequential plus that one, and that takes him down to 3. And then our final push is going to be Machine Man, who we pay 2 for. We pump him up by 3 for those of you who haven't been playing Machine Man. You can spend up to 3 resources to pump his stats, so we're going to pump his attack up to 3. He does his final attack for 3, and then takes no retaliate damage because we finished the game, and he takes no consequential either. Game finishes first. So we've got 15 health, 3 turns. Pretty good deck, Astrodar.